Yoichi Isagi, the one and the only. Isagi never really enjoyed playing football in a concentrated environment. We're talking about in school, in clubs, and so on. He wasn't a big fan of doing all that. He was more of a fan of being a street baller. He was more of a fan of more or less working on his own, playing the game on his own and enjoying it, and playing in a very unorthodox fashion. His friends and many people around him would try their best to more or less learn how to play the game of football, but in a brand new way. They would play in a confined area, and sometimes in an area that had no confinements at all. No out of bounds, and some had walls that would close them in. They would basically play football in an auditorium. And they would use the walls, they would use the floor, and all of it to their own advantage. Isagi sometimes would jump off the wall and even kick the ball into the goal. They would try little trick shots, and eventually they would become kind of a spectacle. Him and his buddies would kind of just mess around, and everybody would grow a crowd. They would watch as Isagi more or less just dice up his entirety of his teammates. It was truly a remarkable thing. His ability to juggle the ball, his ability to control it, his dribbling, amazing. His way of shooting was so unorthodox. It's as if the ball just bended to his will. It was very confusing. Most football players would look at it and think that Isagi was a one-of-a-kind talent, was someone that was far, far different than anyone else. And he would grow in popularity because of this. But when he would go into high school, let's just say his popularity would slowly shrink. When he was younger, it was easier to do these things. Because frankly, when you're younger, it's a lot easier to do these extracurricular activities. But his mom and dad didn't like the idea of him being not being in a concentrated environment, more or less not being on a regular football team. So he would eventually be forced into that. And the coach there didn't like Isagi very much. He believed that teamwork was the only thing that mattered. This didn't really fit the brand of football that Isagi wanted to play. Of course he would pass the ball. He's no ball hog, or at least to a certain extent he's no ball hog. But at the same time, he didn't necessarily want to be all this teamwork schmeamwork thing. He doesn't care about this whole there's no I in team type of thing. But he would tell his coach one day during a tournament final, he would tell him that there may not be an I in T or an I in team, but there's an ME in that bitch somewhere. And he would tell him that he's going to take over and he's going to show him what he's really about. Down 1-0, Isagi throws away the playbook. His coach would scream at him, but he wouldn't even listen. Going out there, and he begins to use his dribbling moves, unorthodox dribbling moves, to the point that he's throwing the ball basically over his shoulder, juggling it right directly in front of people, baiting them into trying to grab it or kick it in some sort of way. This would give him openings to more or less kick the ball perfectly around them and get by them in seconds. As a street baller, his control over this football is insane. His control over the ball is untouchable. It's as if he runs around and it's as if he can move the ball with his own mind. Of course, that's not necessarily the case, but it definitely feels that way sometimes. He gets by so many of the defenders, and to his right, he can see his teammate wide open. An easy goal. Or at least that's what his coach would want him to think. A fake pass to his right, and with his left foot, he would tap the ball right over the goalie as he dives toward the pass that was meant for someone else. What a fake by Isagi, putting them tied 1-1, and Isagi begins to back up and get ready to play some defense. And defense, he would play. It would be gorgeous. With his amazing movement and his ability to read where the ball is going to go, because in his eyes, that everybody else likes to overcomplicate things, make things so stiff. That's all they're doing. Even Kira, the one he's watching now, he may be talented, but Kira is stiff. Kira is not moving with some pizzazz, not moving with some fluidity, not having fun. And Isagi could read this very easily, and he steals the ball from Kira. He juggles the ball over one of them and then kicks it in between the legs of another. He would begin sprinting toward the ball, but on accident would get tripped. But as he would get tripped, he would spring off his hands, doing a full somersault. As he does, he regains the ball, shooting it and scoring the final goal for his team. And they go up 2-1 and they win the game. Everybody is celebrating and Isagi is pointing up to the sky. He walks over to his team and everybody just tells him that he's amazing, that whatever he did out there, they haven't seen him do in a long time. Maybe whoever was out there really pushed him to the next level. But Isagi shrugs and says that he was just having fun, and that's what football is all about. Before his coach could even put in another word, a word conflicting with the idea that Isagi just wants to play for fun and not, well, worry about the team, he just leaves. He just heads out. And the coach would scream for him to tell him to come back, but he wouldn't. He would leave and he would meet up with some of his other friends. His friends that are a bunch of street ballers, and he would continue just messing around and playing. Working on some new tricks, some cool things, shooting from ranges that aren't supposed to be shot from, doing a kick off of two hands with his back heel, and he does some amazing juggling tricks. And even some of the own street ballers still there question how he's even able to do that mid-game. He's juggling the ball, but at the same time utilizing the juggling to more or less get people to go a certain way. Isagi says that the ball has the mind of his own sometimes. You just gotta let the ball speak. He tells them all that he has to go home. His mother's making dinner, so he'll talk to them later. He leaves, and when he arrives at home, he would see that there's a letter on the table written to him or himself. He sees that it's actually something pretty interesting. His mother would even tell him to read it out loud. He would do just that, saying that it's actually from a training facility. It seems like someone has recognized his street balling talents and that they want him to go out there and show what he can do against some of the best talent in the world, or at least in Japan. And he's excited to hear this. I mean, he'll show them what's up. He'll show them that he truly is the best. And his parents would smirk at this and laugh, saying that they can't wait to see Isagi do amazing things. And Isagi says that he'll be one of the most unpredictable football players in the world, someone that is unguardable. He'll truly be someone that can't be stopped at all. And they can watch as their son exceeds all expectations. Isagi would eat his food and the next day would head out. He would head out, and when arriving at an auditorium, he would smirk and walk in without even a hesitation. He would see this auditorium, a bunch of people all around, and he sees a ton of people. He does a quick scan of who these people are. I mean, he sees some big dudes, some smaller dudes, he sees some random dudes, he sees some smart dudes. He doesn't really care. He's just here to show off. And as he listens in, he finally hears the voice of the one and only Jinpachi Ego. Jinpachi Ego would then speak about what is going on right here and right now. Blue Lock. Blue Lock is a place that they are going to hone their skills. 300 strikers will be confined in a remote football training facility, and it will be directed by himself. He will find one that exceeds all of the rest. And on top of that, they will all find their inner ego. Because at the end of the day, that is what matters when it comes to becoming a striker. And Isagi would listen to this and think this is fantastic. And Isagi would eventually raise his hand, as Jinpachi Ego would be confused but point at him. He would then ask Ego, when the hell do they start? In which Ego says that he sounds pretty confident, maybe even egotistical. Maybe he'll be the next egoist. But at the same time, he doesn't know the caveat. If they're eliminated, then they can never play for Japan's national team ever. Isagi would laugh at this, saying that he's here for the challenge. He's here to beat every single person down to a pulp, because he wants to prove that his version of football is so much better than the rest. Ego would look closer and he would see who it is and who's talking. Yoichi Isagi, huh? I know who you are. I've done my homework. I can't wait to see what you got on a field that is truly not your own. Isagi would smirk as the doors would open, and as Isagi would pass Ego being the first one through those gates, he would tell Ego that every field is his, even if it's not on the street. He would walk by and he would get dressed in the proper clothing for Blue Lock and arrive at his own place, or at the place that he needed to go. He is in the building of Team Z. Supposedly, a lot of them are the bottom of the barrel. Isagi floating around the middle of the pack around all of them, but he would just sigh at the fact that they don't really understand the beauty of street balling, and they don't understand the beauty of what he'll be able to do. In which all of them are a little confused. They wonder why Jinpachi Ego even knows who he is, and Isagi says that he's slightly known for being a street baller, someone that plays football in unorthodox ways. And a lot of them would say that he's not going to be able to adapt very well. I mean, this is a totally different game. And Isagi says that he's played against harder defense, he's played against more rough and tough conditions. There is no striker in the world that can guard him. Doesn't matter the size, doesn't matter the attitude, it doesn't matter anything. There's no stopping him when he wants to get to the goal. In which all of them think he's just being overconfident, that maybe he is an egoist, but maybe he's also delusional. But Isagi also says that don't get it wrong and don't get it twisted, his skills as a defender might be just as good. Because at the end of the day, he's played against street ballers that have way better footwork than everyone here combined, and he can guarantee that. In which Isagi would smirk as everyone would eventually go quiet as Jinpachi Ego would arrive on the screen. He would explain what their first test will be. He needs to weed out one of those people in the room, so they're going to start with a bit of tag. Isagi would laugh at this, and he says that tag is the name of the game. He can explain it for the skinny guy if he wants. And of course, Ego would laugh at this and tell Isagi to go ahead and explain it. Isagi says that on the streets, they do play a game called tag, but with the football. If you get hit with the football, you're it. The only rule really is there's no handballs. So good luck if you get kicked in the face. And Jinpachi Ego would smirk as he says, couldn't have said it better myself, as he turns off the screen and a number comes up saying 2 minutes and 16 seconds and a ball would drop from the roof. Isagi would immediately pick it up and begin shooting it toward many people, immediately hitting one of them by the name of Kunigami. He says that the big guy looks strong, so he better shoot that rock pretty quick or else he might go home right now. And Isagi would watch as immediately Kunigami would shoot at him, but Isagi would bend his body in a way that he's able to easily dodge. Everyone's shocked. What is he, some acrobat? That's insane that he was able to move his body like that. He then tells Kunigami that he has a hell of a shot, but unfortunately, he missed. And Kunigami would reload once again, shooting back at Isagi once again, but he would miss over and over again. Eventually, though, he would accidentally hit the monk boy. The monk boy would get hit right in the face, and Isagi would begin laughing, hitting the side of his leg as he just makes fun of the monk boy. The monk boy would stand up and run toward a free kick, a kick right at Bachira, the sleeping one. Isagi looks at Bachira and thinks to himself that he reminds him of someone very, very interesting. But if this monk boy's not careful, he's about to get kicked in his mouth. In which that's exactly what happens. Monk boy tries to kick the ball right at Bachira's face, but Bachira wakes up and basically lands a mean kick to his mouth, in which he would stumble backwards and Bachira would yawn, saying that's not cool. He was sleeping. Kunigami would say that they need to play fair, but Isagi would tell him that he just sounds soft. For a big man like him, he didn't think someone like him would be so soft. I mean, maybe he should just eliminate himself now, because if he's that soft, I don't know how he's going to handle the pressure of these elite defenders that will be on him. In which Isagi would say that Eventually, he'll be up against the pros. Eventually, he'll be up against top talent. So, if he's so soft that a little bit of kicking action to the face is gonna scare him off, I mean, come on. There's no way. In which Kunigami would grit his teeth and would be pissed about this as he takes the ball from Bachira, kicking it straight at Isagi once again. But Isagi would dodge it, and it would hit Kira right in the mouth, knocking out a tooth, and Isagi would smirk. Hey, that ball you're kicking, yeah, it's faster than usual. Now that's what I like to see. Isagi would slide out of the way as Kira tries to kick the ball at him, but soon the clock would hit 0 and Kira would be eliminated. And Isagi would make a remark saying that Kira is kind of not that good anyways, so it's better that he goes now. In which Kira would remark back at him, saying that he's nothing special, that truly he'll see very, very quick that being a street baller and also being a true football player are two very different things. And Isagi says that it sucks that he's not going to be here to prove it to him, because he has to lock off. In which Jinpachi Ego would show up on the screen, and he would explain exactly what's going to happen, and that Kira's dreams are over. And yeah, they're permanently over. Kira would leave, and Isagi would stand there watching as he walks out the door. Not one tad of remorse in his face. And Isagi would look toward Kunigami, the big guy, and he would come over and pat him on the shoulder, saying that he apologizes for antagonizing him. He just wanted to get the most out of his kicking power. I mean, it's obvious that he can kick the ball with the best of them, but come on, he has to let loose. Come on, channel that inner strength. I mean, you saw how fast that ball was going? That thing looked like a baseball. In which Isagi would say that he's going to be a real good dude on this football field, but he needs to toughen up a little bit more. Maybe get a little more gritty. Isagi would say this, and Kunigami would just kind of roll his eyes, not thinking much more about Isagi because at this point, he's kind of just annoyed. But one person who's not annoyed is Bachira. Bachira begins to think that this guy is so similar to him, that he's awesome. I mean, God, look, hear what he's saying? And all the stuff he's talking about, how he talks about football. He wish he knew him growing up. That would have been awesome. They could have been best buddies. They could have played street ball together. In which Isagi says that Bachira does remind him of someone else, but he'll have to see his skills to see more or less how good or how better or worse than he is of the guy that he used to play with. But he hopes that he's that much better, because that would be an awesome thing. He needs a challenge, and he loves him some challenges. Isagi would say this, and Jinpachi Ego would continue to explain what's going to happen next. They are Team Z. There's 11 players in their team remaining, and they will live together with the message that at some times the players will work together and others will betray each other. In which Isagi thinks the idea of betraying someone is kind of lame. Even he has morals, even though he wants the best out of every single person so he can crush them, he still has morals. But still, with that said, he's told basically that they're going to be taking on different teams of 11 strikers, and that's basically it. They have to figure out how they want to assign their teams, how they want to do this or that. And that Team Z is the lowest rated of all players, so it's going to be a bit hard to figure it out. Isagi would hear this and say, that's some blasphemy. There ain't no way that this team is made up of some of the lowest ranked players. He needs to see these other teams, because he guarantees you that he is better than every single person on those other teams. In which Iko would kind of laugh at this, saying that he hasn't even seen them yet, but he likes the confidence. He likes the fact that he's truly embracing the role of an egoist. The screen would turn off, and the plans would then ensue, because Team Z will be taking on Team X for their very first game. After plans, after eating some food together, and after bonding a little bit, Isagi would get a little bit more comfortable around people, and everybody would realize that Isagi is just a fun-loving, more or less a hyperactive person. He's always like that. It's as if he's always working at 1,000,000 miles per hour, but at the same time, he is a pretty cool guy. I mean, he's not the jerk that everyone really thought he was in the very beginning, but at the same time, he is kind of the jerk that everyone thought he was at the very beginning. But still, that's beyond the point. Isagi is an impressive talent, and that's just the fact of the matter. So they believe that taking on whatever's to come, they have to find some sort of coordination. But Isagi says himself that he knows that they don't need to be coordinated. They just need to play like they're on the streets. And everybody says that they don't even know how that would work. And Isagi says that you gotta play selfish, but at the same time, you gotta play selfless. In which they would say, once again, that makes zero sense. What is he even talking about? He says that they need to find one person that is extremely good, talented. If that's himself, if that's the cool guy with the yellow eyes over here, if it's the big dude with the orange hair, he doesn't care. And he says that they got to find one person and channel everything through them. That might sound weird and it might sound like they will get all the glory, but that's not actually the case. Once one person breaks through, every last person will break through after. You got to be creative. And especially with 11 strikers, he hopes all of them are creative in their ways of getting a goal. So they'll have to see on the field, because that's what's really going to matter. But he does tell them that if the other team has someone that breaks the wall first, it might become an issue very, very quickly. In which eventually the game would finally begin between Team Z and Team X. And that wall that Isagi was talking about, let's just say someone on the other team looks to break through that wall, but not only break through it, shatter it entirely. Everybody would scramble for the ball, trying to take the ball from each other, and Isagi would see this and just shake his head, saying that this is just ridiculous. I mean, even he knows that this is not proper football etiquette. This is just absolutely insane. But eventually, someone would come out of nowhere, a giant monster of a man, and he would come barreling out, stealing the ball from everybody. And Isagi would see this, and he would run over to guard him. He would tell him that it looks like he met the guy that's going to shatter the wall. And Bato wouldn't even respond, but would be kind of confused. He goes to flip the ball over Isagi, but flipping it over him isn't that simple. He jumps up extremely high, headering it beyond Bato, as Bato is shocked to see this. Isagi saying that type of little cheap move, he's seen it a million times. There's no getting by him on that. He darts by Bato, recovering the ball as he does an outlet pass to Bachira. He tells Bachira that it's time to have fun. And Isagi would sprint away, kind of just trying to make space, gain information, and on top of that, look for an opening for himself. In which Bachira would dribble his way through many people, but then throw up a beautiful pass, kicking it, and it's a beauty. Isagi sees it and would jump up in the air and bicycle kick it right into the goal. Everybody around sees what he's saying now, that it's as if you have to be selfish, but also selfless at the same time. Bachira got his own. Bachira was dribbling, having fun, and Isagi more or less let him do that. But at the same time, Isagi knew that he would get the goal. He knew that the goal needed to go through him, and that's where the selfishness comes in. He wants the goal, so he wants to find the goal, and he'll do it by any means. Bachira was selfish in his own right by taking his dribbling to that next peak and trying to cross up and make a highlight reel out of the people in front of him. But after the first goal, Isagi would run back, dab up Bachira, and say that he might be a lot better than every single street baller he's ever played with. His dribbling skills might be something of legend. He wishes he was out there with him when they were playing for some money. In which Bachira would laugh at this and would tell him to get lined back up because they have more fun to keep doing. In which that would 100% be the case, because Isagi knows that all they have to do is lock in on Bato, in which that's exactly what Isagi does. He tells them that Bato's the main factor of this team, and they just need to keen in on him. In terms of his move sets, Isagi thinks it's very limited, and he even tells Bato this, saying that it's kind of sucks when you're this genetically gifted, but your bag is so small. Like, there's nothing in it. Isagi makes fun of him as Bato would get frustrated, but as frustration creeps in, mistakes do as well. Isagi steals the ball once again, and he runs away, saying it looks like he dropped something. in which Bado would get frustrated, trying to catch up to Isagi, and he would grab him and pull him straight to the ground. This would obviously invoke a yellow card and a free kick by Isagi, but Isagi would get up and say that Bado's kinda weak. I mean, damn, it took you a whole 2 hands to pull me down? I'm half your size, man. God, I just can't understand you genetic freaks not understanding the proper usage of one's hands. In which Isagi would just be mocking him. Isagi loves to kind of waver his voice from some mocking tone, or maybe even saying things in a certain way based on whoever he's talking to, and he just loves messing with people. That's kind of the street ball mentality. Talk a lot of smack, get under their skin, and they love to make mistakes. And Isagi knows this. And one free kick, let's just say this is just a beauty. A free kick that is money, but he turns a shot, or it looks like a shot, into a pass. Seeing Gagamaru cutting across the field last second, he kicks it and he sees Gagamaru fly in more or less and header the ball in for the goal. He just knew by looking at him, there was no way he wasn't athletic. I mean, look how lengthy he is. He even tells Gagamaru, he doesn't even understand why he's a striker. He'd be a hell of a goalie. I mean, come on. He could probably block some of his goals, and I mean, it's real hard to block his goals. In which Kagamaru would take this as a compliment, of course, but he would say that Isagi loves to throw in his own accomplishments every time he gets the chance, huh? Isagi would laugh and say that, I mean, if he's not playing football for himself, who's he really playing for? The team? Come on now. As he walks away, and they're up 2-0. Bado needs to find a way around Isagi. He can't afford to foul him again and get something worse than a yellow card, especially because he doesn't know what that even entails for blue lock. Maybe he'll get kicked out. You really never know. So Bado knows that he has to somehow use his teammates to find a goal, but that's harder and that's way easier said than done. Because when he tries to use his teammates don't feel confident in Bado anymore, trying to take the ball away from him. So his whole team would be collapsing to the ground. And frankly, this could have been them. If Bado made that first goal and came out swinging, there was a good chance that Isagi's team would have crumbled just like theirs, especially because of the way Isagi acts. But eventually, Isagi would steal the ball once again through all the cluster, and he would take it, passing it to the so-called superhero of football, and he scores a goal himself, putting them up 3-0. But with the time coming to an end, they would end the game 3-0. Isagi would be impressed. He tells Kunigami that it seems as if he could kick from almost every distance. I mean, his strength is insane, but he should allow his emotions to creep out just a little bit, because sometimes when you're angry, that kick might go a little bit farther than you would expect. Or at least maybe he should act a little bit more serious, but not too serious, because he needs to have some fun. Isagi would laugh at this and then walk away, as Bachira follows him and they talk about different dribbling moves that more or less Isagi and Bachira can teach each other, in which that would be beneficial for Isagi tenfold. On top of that, he wants to learn this passing ability Bachira has. I mean, sometimes he'll overpass or overshoot the pass, but the float on that ball, ooh, it's crisp. So he wants to know ASAP what's going on with him. So he talks to Bachira, talking to him about how he does his passing, how he does this or that, and that conversation would spill over into their celebration because of the fact that they just won. That's all Isagi wants to know. He wants to know more about this Bachira guy. He wants to know more about his dribbling techniques, his passing techniques, and maybe he'll even talk to some of these other people. Like Gagamaru, man. I mean, he might be athletic and lengthy and so on, but I mean, he can learn from him. Put your body on the line for them goals, man. That's what he's talking about. In which Isagi would tell him that he did call him a goalie, and honestly, he probably would be a good one. But at the same time, well, let's just say Gagamaru knows what it means to truly score. That even hurting yourself, putting your body on the line is worth it as long as the ball goes through the net. In which Isagi would compliment him, of course, and he would say the rest of them did well as well, but you know, not everybody gets the spotlight. Like he said, you gotta be selfish and selfless, but some people, well, they just don't get the ball at all. so they don't have a choice. But he would say that they should come up with a bit of a plan. Maybe a plan that would situate them in a proper way for their own strengths, cover up their weaknesses. He loves street ball. He loves running around and just doing whatever he wants. But he does know that if they do properly put themselves in a good environment and a good place, that it could be really beneficial for them, especially as strikers. I mean, they are very creative, so maybe they should look into that. He actually says that he wants to volunteer Bachira to more or less lead the charge. He's amazing with the ball, his passing ability seems to be really interesting, and his dribbling can get him out of a pinch really easily. And Isagi says that he'll be, let's call it, the wild card. He'll be the one that runs around, looks around, finds his way around, and eventually he'll pop out of nowhere, just like that. He'll show up, and he'll be from, well, nowhere itself. They'll all be surprised. They'll be like, wow, how did Isagi get there? And they'll be happy, because he'll be putting the ball in the net. And he begins to tell everyone else what they should really do. And then he gets the chiguri, and confusion would go over him, because he doesn't really know much about chiguri. But he says that he looks fast, real fast. But for some reason, he didn't run. Not even a single inch. Chiguri would ignore him and just walk out the room, in which Isagi and his suspicions, he feels, would be correct. He would look at them and say, nonetheless, they still have to focus on whatever's to come, so they probably should check out whatever film they have access to and whatever they gotta do. In which they're all confused. You really watch film? And Isagi says that of course he does. He might be unorthodox, and he might do things a little differently, but studying up on opponents and learning from the best is how you become the best. So that's just something to keep in mind. Isagi would more or less make this claim, and all of them would agree. They would get ready and be prepared, because they're going to be taking on Team Y. But that's for the next part of What If Isagi had a street baller weapon. Now it's time for Team Z to take on Team Y. And Isagi doesn't know that much about this team. They've done their research just a little bit, but they didn't really learn that much about them. But when the match would start, he would see that they're all kind of playing keep away. Isagi thinks this is kind of boring. I mean, this is kind of lame. What are you gonna do? Play keep away until you find an opening? He stands there and thinks to himself, oh my god, they're actually going to do that. He finds this absolutely disgusting. The fact that someone's as dumb and as kind of annoying as them to basically play keep away until they find an opening within the defense and probably try to score down the field. And he flat out hates the idea that they're even doing this. He believes that it's not even fun. And frankly, he's right. He says to all of them that if they're going to really play keep away like this, why even play football? There's literally no point. They're not having fun. It's obvious that they're not. I mean, his team's not having fun. All they're doing is watching them throw the ball around. And that's just lame. Why do they keep doing it? Eventually, though, it would lead to a pass to Nico and a ball getting more or less kicked down the field in quick succession. Isagi would tell everybody to recover and shift with the defense. As they shift, Isagi would, in a full sprint, would actually help recover the distance, even distracting Okawa just for a split second, allowing Gagamaru to get in position to chip the ball so that he actually misses the first goal. Isagi looks at them as he gets the ball, and he tells them that if they really want to play these little cheap tricks to somehow win, then they're going to start playing at a pace that he likes playing at. In which they're all confused at what they're hearing, but he would look toward Bachira and move his head, and look toward Gagamaru and move his head, telling them to try and keep up. He immediately would dart off straight toward the midline as he darts by one, getting by another, nutmegging the next, and quick passes it to Bachira. Bachira would kick it right back to Isagi, as Isagi would immediately kick it right to Gagamaru, who's sprinting down the field, and has an insane flexibility to catch up to the ball and kick it directly into the goal. Isagi tells them and looks toward Nico, saying that if he really wants to get the pass off to Okawa, he might want to do it quickly, because it's not going to be that simple anymore. He tells him this and says there's no chance in hell he's going to let them play at a slow pace. He's not here to more or less watch people pass the ball around and, oh yeah, we're going to stall the game out. He's pissed at the fact that they really tried to do that and tells Bachira to get ready to run a lot. So whoever doesn't like running and whoever has low stamina, well, you might as well switch off because they're going to be going out at an insane pace now. Isagi immediately out right when the ball is kicked in, he would go sprinting forward, looking for an opening. And that opening would appear relatively quickly, especially with how fast they're swarming to the ball. They're insanely confused. The other team, Team Y, insanely confused at how Isagi's even keeping up this pace, how he's able to get from person to person, and eventually he would react to the ball and steal it. Once again, looking for his own goal, and he would shoot a beautiful one about 15 to 20 meters out. One that is threaded right above the goalie, and it's an amazing goal. After that, he would get set once again, and he would more or less continue to talk trash, telling them that they're a bunch of useless football players if they're going to sit here and try to stall out time. But luckily for them, and to the enjoyment of himself, they can't really do that anymore. They're down 2-0, so he thinks that it's probably time for them to get a little bit more creative, in which creative isn't necessarily what they're looking for. Isagi would be kind of frustrated at this. It's as if they can't adapt. They thought a single one-track minded plan would work so easily that they could win off this. Well, where's the creativity? Where's the fun? There's no fun in this. Structured plans. You guys are all strikers. 11 of you. So useless. Especially you. He would point at the kid with some weird hair, a weird afro covering his eyes by the name of Nico. And he would tell him that he's useless, that he more or less fits perfectly supposedly in this plan to what? Play like a bunch of chickens? To play like some lame football players? Why were they even strikers in the first place? God, he thought his team was built up of a bunch of people that were just the best on their team. That's why they were put at the striker position. But it's obvious. It's obvious that everybody on their team, it was the definition of just, he's the best player on the team. Put him at the striker position. He says that it's not even close. Their teams aren't even comparable. At least his team has some sort of skill. In which Nico would get frustrated as he hears this, and Isagi would go diving toward him, stealing the ball, telling him that if he gets mad, well, he can get mad all he wants, but at least put some action to it. Isagi would score his next goal, and he would tell Nico, stop being someone else's pet. Maybe it's time for him to try to score on his own. In which Nico's passing abilities and his accuracy with the ball would be an insane way for him to score. But Isagi is practically sitting in a lawn chair in every single head of Team Y. So even scoring right now would be practically impossible for them. With Isagi's constant pressure and creative offense, there really wasn't much stopping him. Their one-track minded little plan that they came up with was so useless. I mean, come on, they really thought that was going to work? It's honestly ridiculous. Nonetheless, the game would eventually come to an end, and Isagi would rack up the goals, making him the leader of his team in terms of goals. And his team would celebrate the win, but Isagi would just be more frustrated than anything. He came here for a challenge, and at least that other guy that looked like he was on steroids, completely jacked out of his mind, was somewhat of a challenge and had an idea of how to score a ball or score a goal or even try to score a goal. These people, God, they're doing this lame little trickery thinking that they could just play keep away with the ball. What kind of lame shit is that? Isagi is pissed. He can't even celebrate properly. He just leaves the room after eating a bite of food and just goes and starts working on new skills he tries to more or less in-depthly adapt to. As he's working on these skills though, someone would approach him outside, and it would actually be Bachira. Bachira would follow him and say that they should really try to get in sync, that they could be really good together. But Isagi says that he's less of a team player. He doesn't really like doing all that. But he'd love to show Bachira some skills if he wants to learn something, and maybe he can learn something from Bachira's dribbling. In which, of course, helping each other and working together is really just extremely beneficial for the both of them. But as they work out and as they try to do some drills, the rest of Team Z would arrive as well, saying that they might have 2 games under their belt and they might have 1, but it's obvious that the skill gap between all of them and Isagi in terms of being pure strikers is a distant one. So they need to train with him and work with him as much as possible if they want to close that gap. Isagi smirks and says that it's all about having fun. A striker is a position that is fun. You get all the glory. You score all of it. You can have the glory. And he says that the Nico guy, he was so timid about that. He didn't want the glory. He was scared of it. He ran from it. Isagi would say that he would never run from it. He would never in a million years run from the glory of scoring a goal. None of them should either. Never run from it. Isagi would look around and eventually would see that one of them is actually missing. And that would be Chiguri. Chiguri is currently in a different room watching some film. But Chiguri is currently dealing with his own demons. His demons with his knee and the fact that he tore his ACL and may never play football ever again. But it seems like he's going to continue on with this team and they're going to get further and further. But he doesn't want to get further. He wants his dream to die here. Eventually, some people would actually get a chance to speak with him just a little bit. But his eyes wouldn't open up truly until Isagi would remark toward him that if he gives up now, he'll be giving up on himself. And I don't know how you could ever live with that. Having a striker's ego should never allow you to just walk away from this game. Isagi says that it doesn't matter that if he blew out both of his kneecaps, he blew out his arm, he lost his eyes, he wouldn't care. He would still play football, no matter what. It didn't matter how bad he would be, didn't matter how well he could even score. He would still play football, because this is the life he chose, and at one point, that's the life that Chiguri chose as well. But he tells him that it's up to him. It all depends on what he wants to do. If he wants to give up, sure, go right on ahead. But at the same time, he hopes that he can find the inner version of himself that could show up and show out in front of every person that's ever doubted him. Eventually, the next day would arrive, and the game against Team W would finally begin. The main people that they need to key in on are the Wanama twins. The Wanama twins are flat out a pretty big issue. They have really good coordination and just easily are able to connect with each other back and forth and back and forth. It seems like there's kind of just no end to their chemistry. But at the same time, Isagi believes that this, in a way, is a boring way of playing. He says that, yeah, it's so cool to more or less coordinate with your buddy. You know, you got freedom to a certain extent. But y'all don't play with anybody else. It's boring. Why are you doing this? Play with the rest of your team. Maybe they can evolve with you. But of course, the plan is this simple. It feels like a running theme for Isagi. It's all about the plan being simple. He sees it. It's an obvious simple plan for them. Just coordinate back and forth, move the ball, look for openings, and he'll, quick pass, maybe tempo pass, maybe this or that. And he sees it. He sees the plan. He sees that it could be effective. But the issue for him, and it's a running theme overall, is that he finds it boring. He thinks it's dumb. He could come out here. He could team up with the guy over there, Bachira. They have pretty similar dribbling styles. They could, coordinate some passes and do it up and down the field the entire game, and they could dominate. But what's the fun in that? Relying on someone else that much? What happens when you're by yourself? What happens when that shadow comes over and covers one of you? Isagi decides to do just that. The Wanama twins try their best to score goals, but Isagi is stuck to one of them. He says that he doesn't like playing defense. He really doesn't. He finds it a little bit boring. But at the same time, just to prove a point to these fake strikers that he's seeing, this would never fly in the street. This would never, ever be something that we would let you do down where I come from. Isagi would put the clamps on one of the Wanama twins, not allowing him to even move an inch. He would be everywhere. And the other Wanama twin would crumble like dust. It's as if he can't even get passes through. He can't find his brother anywhere. And this defense would lead to Bachira stealing the ball, setting up Kuragami for goals, Gagumaru getting goals, everybody on their team practically getting goals. Isagi was so frustrated at the fact that this is the second team that is so boring. Like, they want to coordinate so badly that they don't let their creativity run wild just a little bit, just a tiny bit. That's all he wants to see, creativity. So Isagi makes sure that this team loses in dominant fashion, and losing in dominant fashion is exactly what they do. The Wanama twins would crumble at the feet of Isagi and the rest of the team, and even spots of Raichi would show his defensive prowess, kind of mimicking what Isagi was doing. But Isagi is extremely fast. That's really the only reason why he's able to do stuff like that. His defensive prowess isn't that good. He's a little bit more gritty, actually probably a good bit more gritty than everyone else. So in terms of like getting rough, he definitely can get rough without really worrying about getting hurt. But in terms of everything else, he's not the best defender in the world. He can't see the field amazingly and perfectly like some people can. But he definitely can kind of react with his feet and just maneuver where he believes the ball should be. He tries to get a feel for the ball. The ball is speaking to him. But still, nonetheless, they would win the match. Team Z would win against Team W, and that would take them to their very final match. But the thing with that is, these don't even matter anymore. They have won 3 games, so they don't necessarily need to even play this 4th game, but they still will. Isagi wants to still hone his skills, and supposedly Team V is extremely good. And he would actually meet a couple of them, meeting Ryo, Nagi, and also Zantetsu, but he wouldn't really like the attitude of Nagi. The fact is, it seems that Nagi's lazy. He thinks that soccer is boring, and he thinks this or that. And this does not bode well for Isagi. I mean, Isagi doesn't like the attitude. He doesn't like how he's playing it off as if football is this boring sport, and that if he plays it, it's such a drag, and this would piss him off. Isagi would tell him that if it's all such a drag, that he should probably just quit now. Because the next game, he's going to embarrass him so badly that he's not going to want to play football ever again in his life anyways. So he should probably just leave. In which Nagi would hear this and he wouldn't really respond, but Ryo would, telling him to back off and that he doesn't want anything from their team, that they already got through. He doesn't want to get beat so bad that, well, it's going to be embarrassing. But Isagi strikes back, telling him that there's no way a bunch of softies like them will even touch his team. His team actually has some, a chip on their shoulder. Unlike them. It looks like they from some private school or some shit. That's kind of lame. Isagi says that they wouldn't last a single ounce, a single second when you're playing street ball. That they would crumble, they would fall, and they would hit the ground one time and probably run home to mommy. And he says that soon, he'll show him exactly what he means. Very soon. Isagi would walk away, and he would be ready to smash this team to dust. But when they watch the film, he realizes how talented they really are. Or at least how talented one of them are. Nagi. Nagi is an acrobat, it feels like. But at the same time, he has such insane control over the ball. But still, Isagi says that he'll handle Nagi. They'll just have to handle the rest. In which he would see Chiguri beginning to stand up, and he says that the fast dude is his. But Isagi would say that with his little knee issue, he doesn't know if he can keep up. Chiguri would smirk and say that to not worry, that he didn't get a chance to show off against the Wanama twins because he wanted to, because of how annoying they were. It seemed like Isagi was more annoyed to the point that he kind of just shut him down himself. But Chiguri says that he's not done here yet. A lot of the swagger and all of the confidence that Isagi promotes and projects, frankly, is rubbing off on a lot of them, and Chiguri is one of them. He decides to lock back in for the final time, and he says that if his knee blows out, his knee blows out, because Isagi is right. This is for the love of football and the love of the game, so he's gonna give it his all. Isagi smirks to hear and is happy to hear this, so when they begin the game against Team V, Isagi is excited, but also confident. And the first goal would prove how confident he is. He would immediately pass it up to Bachira, as Bachira would give him a pass back, and Isagi would blitz through their entire team practically, spinning it around Reo and then eventually nutmegging Nagi. Yeah, the prodigy, absolutely putting all of them in a blender and scoring the first goal. Isagi looks at them and says that, I mean, if they're that talented, he'll copy exactly what he did. But of course they can't. They don't have ball control like him. They don't have dribbling like him. They can't even keep up with him. They might as well polish his cleats, because that's all they're going to be good for after he leaves them crying on the ground. He would walk away and everybody would get ready once again, and Team V would be on the attack. Reo immediately looking for a dynamic pass down the field to Nagi, and that pass would eventually come. And while midair, Nagi would control it with one foot so easily. In fact, as he goes to shoot the ball though, someone would come out of nowhere to stop him. It's Raichi. Raichi had a realization of what Isagi has been saying. At the end of the day, Isagi is very gritty, he's very tough, and he's not afraid of anybody. So Raichi needs to play like that as well. He needs to play with reckless abandonment. He needs to play with no fear at all. And that's exactly what he's going to do. He guards Nagi, and the kick would go ringing off of his abdomen, and he would kick the ball away, clearing it entirely. Nagi would be confused. How the hell did he even get there? And why didn't he sense him at all? But still, the ball would be then recovered by the one and only Chiguri, who would be sprinting up the field. Immediately, Zantetsu would try to cut him off, but a quick pass to Isagi once again, and the dynamic footwork of Isagi would be kind of extremely hard to guard. Reo would make this would be proof of this, but quickly Isagi would flip the ball above Reo, and as it lands behind Reo, Isagi would kick the ball, passing it directly to Bachira, telling Bachira to have some fun. And Bachira would begin moving and dribbling and moving left to right in such a dynamic way and such an unpredictable way that it's as if his feet weren't even connected at all. It's as if they're moving completely independently. And Isagi has taught Bachira different ways of dribbling, and he's picked up on them so quickly, it seems like his dribbling has ramped up to a new level. Bachira would eventually slide the ball down his right foot, but as it slides to the left side of his right foot, he would flip it the other way, baiting the guy to go the opposite direction as he kicks off back to the left, or back off to the right, and he bolts off down the field, and as he comes into the range or his shooting range, someone else would cut him off. It was Nagi, making up for the downtime, and Zantetsu tries to cut them off as well. But as he gets cut off, Bachira would make a beautiful pass, but this pass was a little too high. But Isagi sees it and thinks that he's gonna go get this anyways. He doesn't care. He jumps midair and does a front flip, hitting the ball with the back of his heel and scoring a goal. Everybody standing there in complete shock. But Nagi, he wants another shot at Isagi. He believes that he can take him on. He can take him down. He has to expose his defense. He can expose that his defense isn't that good. In which he tells Reo to pass it down the field once again. In which it would happen once again. And, well, Raichi would be there waiting. But he would eventually get by Raichi, making a move, and Isagi would gain ground, being able to get in front of Nagi. He tells Nagi that he's seen some of the best creative and dynamic scorers you could ever see. But Nagi, he's nowhere near that. Isagi would step up to the plate and would begin guarding Nagi, and it seems like he has him completely clamped up. And Isagi continues to talk trash, continues to say things, but eventually Nagi would come out with some insane trick, a trick that would bait Isagi to overcommitting, thinking he has a steal, but he would go by him and score right around another one of the defenders by the name of Raichi, and he would score right around him. It would be amazing. Isagi would see this and he would be stunned, standing still, staring at the ground. But his eyes would then drag upwards as he looks at his teammates and then looks at Nagi. Nagi looks back at him with a bit of confidence, and Isagi smiles and just starts laughing over and over and over again. And he says that it seems like Nagi has a bit of street baller in him after all. But unfortunately enough, well, it doesn't matter that he has a little bit. He's dealing with the whole thing right now, in which Isagi would get the ball later down the field and Nagi would try to guard him. But the same move that Nagi put on Isagi, he would put it on Nagi as well. But this time it was with another trick. A trick that would bait Nagi into trying to reach for the ball, and it would make him look silly. He would get nutmegged as the ball would spin back around him. He would spin around with the ball, and Isagi would dive toward the goal, easily running and more or less scoring a free goal. Everybody's standing there staring. Whoa, what kind of move was that? They haven't seen Isagi ever do something like that. That was freaking insane. It was as if he was controlling the ball with his mind. It was as if he was able to control it and use it to every whim of his own imagination. And Isagi runs back, now being up 3-1, and he would tell them that that is the definition of creativity. Now watch as he paints the entire field with his graffiti. And everybody is kind of shocked by this. Chills running down so many of their spines. Whoa, now this is a new version of Isagi they never believed would exist. And he calls it his graffiti dribbling. And they're all wondering what this even means, but Bachira understands. He's seen him use it before during their training. He didn't understand how it worked, but it's as if he's using patterns of different art and tags that he's seen before to utilize them against other people and his dribbling. But at the same time, graffiti is not structured. It's not perfect. It's all random and spontaneous in a way sometimes. Isagi's dribbling is just like that. He would follow a pattern, but then out of nowhere, he would abort that pattern entirely, immediately going a different way, trying a different pattern and a different sequence, making it impossible to keep up with his sporadic and creative dribbling style. And Isagi then tells them all that this whole field is his canvas, and he's going to make it exactly what it should be. In which Nagi would tell Reo that he can get them another goal. Trust him. He knows he can break free from this. He knows he can evolve and beat that guy. Whoever he is, he'll make sure he wins. Reo would be shocked. I mean, he's never seen Nagi in such a way. How is he? Why is he? He's acting so crazy. But Nagi is locked in, ready to go. He feels unstoppable. He feels that he can step up to the plate now and do some insane things. And he would immediately be darting down the field, dribbling past multiple people, and he passes it up to Zantetsu, looking for a quick tap pass from him as well. He would get it, but then the ball would be stolen. Isagi would say that his dribbling style and that his little movements, the movements he thinks that are so good, are way too predictable. That maybe he should add some spice to his life a little bit, and add a little bit of something to his step. Maybe add a little pep to his step. He would dart by and easily get by multiple people, setting up Kunigami for a goal for himself. He then says that it's now time for the rest of his team to now eat. they will all now eat, and he'll make sure they all are able to evolve. In which Nagi, Reo, Zantetsu, and everybody else on Team V doesn't even know what to do. It's as if they truly are crumbling right on the hands of Isagi. It's as if Isagi knew that once they stepped on this field, once they stepped on his canvas, there was no getting out. There was no escape. This is truly hell, and Isagi makes it feel that way. But at the end of the day, the game wouldn't mean anything beyond a teaching lesson and a teaching moment. Isagi's team would win, Team Z would go undefeated, and Isagi would show off something that nobody there would even believe he could do. Everybody celebrates, and this time around Isagi would celebrate as well. He would believe that he just evolved in such a way that was beautiful, that was creative, amazing, and just enjoyable. He just had so much joy in this game of football. And he even stops and compliments Nagi, compliments Reo and even Zantetsu, saying that they may have lost by a lot, but everybody lost by a lot. But at the same time, they allowed him to see things that he never knew he would be able to see. To feel, to enjoy. He never knew he could feel like this, but now he does. It's truly, truly amazing. Isagi says that they all have potential, but that one right there, as he points at Nagi, says that he's just like one of his friends. He's a street baller at heart. His unorthodox way of controlling the ball. It's as if the ball really speaks to him when his foot touches it. He just needs a push in the right direction. And sometimes you just need the right person to push you in the right direction. Isagi would leave, and Nagi would stand there just thinking about what Isagi said. That guy, he's truly something. And after the celebrations, after everybody's happy that they won, new information would come in from the one and only Jinpachi Ego. It would be revealed that he kind of lied about the building, the whole building assortment, that they're not necessarily the worst ever, and that every single building was actually labeled the same thing. He was trying to make them feel inferior. But Isagi then says that he ain't ever felt inferior in his life, and he will never feel inferior. In which Jinpachi Ego would smirk and say that many people aren't like you, Mr. Isagi. But at the same time, this experiment needed to happen. He then tells them all that the next selection, the second selection, will eventually be upon them. They have some physical training to do, but once they're done with all of that, they will then go on to the next selection. After all of it is said and done, well, they do take on the first part of the second selection, being that of Blue Lock Man. Blue Lock Man is a bit of an easy thing for Isagi. Nothing too major, nothing too crazy, but Isagi finds his way around it. He believes that it's not the hardest thing to deal with. I mean, he's not the most powerful in terms of kicking, but at the same time, his shooting is definitely creative. He knows how to more or less get his own goal from crazy angles and different positions, and he's shown that over and over again. But he just doesn't have the range of a Kunigami. But he has pretty decent range, in fact. Nothing, obviously, insanely overpowered, at least compared to the rest of the stuff he can do. But still good enough to get by Blue Lock Man. And after it's all said and done, and he walks out of those doors to the next part of the selection, he sees Bachira, and Bachira would immediately jump on him. He would tell him that it's good to see the buddy. He's glad he didn't fail, because that would have sucked. It would have sucked not having his buddy play with him. And Isagi would say that he really should watch how he says things, because it's a little sus. And Bachira would question what that even means, but Isagi would just ignore it, thinking that he's kind of like a little kid. He probably shouldn't go too into detail what he's even talking about. But a surprise would come to Isagi, as they only need one more person, but Nagi would walk up to him. saying that he wants Isagi on his team. Ryo would say that he already has a partner and that it won't work. But Isagi would reply, saying that Nagi can be on his team, but he would have to leave Ryo and join him. There's a reason for this. Isagi tells him that he wants to make something unpredictable, something not structured. And Bachira is the closest thing to that. Bachira's dribbling, it was on a whole nother level, maybe even on another level than mine. Mine is so different than Bachira's, but Bachira's is just as creative, but just in a different way. Your way of ball control, your ability to manipulate and use the ball to your own advantage, that's creative. But we can make you even more creative, even more lethal, just like us. Isagi would smirk, and he would think that if they have Nagi on their team, oh, it'll be a hell of a fun game for whoever they go against next. And Nagi, well, he would accept the offer, deciding to join Isagi, and they would walk through those doors. They would walk through those doors to get ready to take on whoever's behind them 3 versus 3. And the team they find is the number 1 player currently in Blue Lock, Itoshi Rin, with the number 2 and number 3 players, in which Isagi would get frustrated about, saying that he should have scored more goals. Whatever. He would then say that he challenges them. Let's see if they really are as good as those numbers say they are. Isagi's team, built up of Nagi and Bachira, take on Rin, Aru, and Tokumitsu. Now, this team is a scary one, at least in terms of the numbers that are on their shoulders. But in terms of what Isagi could do and what his team can do, well, they are a giant unknown, a massive unknown. Because at the end of the day, Rin hasn't seen Isagi, and at the end of the day, Isagi, he's a bit unpredictable. And let's see if Rin can really read the field when Isagi's going to show him things that he's never seen before. Quickly, Isagi's team would jump out to a quick start, immediately passing it between Bachira and Isagi. Seemingly, they're in pretty good sync. Not perfect sync, but pretty good sync. Isagi's still a step ahead, or maybe even 2 steps ahead in terms of his dribbling, and also the unorthodox ability to pass the ball and really score from many different angles. Isagi would do a quick pass to Nagi, as Nagi would begin to actually utilize the same style that Isagi is using. When he jumps up in the air to control the ball, he begins to control it in a brand new way. A way that, well, Isagi can see is very, very inspired by just his way of dribbling and controlling the ball. At the end of the day, Nagi is seen, or Isagi sees Nagi as someone who could definitely benefit from some street ball. And Nagi's control over the ball, well, it's a pretty good indicator that Isagi is right about Nagi's ability to control the ball mid-air, but be so creative with it, it would lead to a goal for himself, putting them up 1-0. But Isagi would see that Rin seems to be just straight up downloading, as if he's kind of trying to read the field and learn what's going on. But then Rin would do something extremely unorthodox, kicking the ball straight up off of kickoff and scoring a goal for his team, putting them, well, tied up 1-1, in which this would surprise Isagi, thinking that he didn't really expect someone like Rin to be unorthodox. This isn't something that, well, normally happens. Nobody just kicks the ball off a kickoff to score a goal. It's a little risky, so he's surprised that Rin, of all people, especially someone like him, the way he acts and the way he, well, promotes himself, he doesn't seem like someone to do something so unorthodox. So Isagi is pretty put off by this. But he would smile, and that insane, crazed look in his eyes would return, because he would realize that Rin has a little bit of that unorthodox feeling to him, but he can do exactly what Rin just did. the next time they get the ball, he would do the same thing, kick the ball off from kickoff, and would score a goal for his team. He would look at Rin and even tell him that he could do exactly the same thing. He might not have the brains that Rin does, but he damn sure has the talent. And frankly, if we're talking about who can score goals from more directions and more unorthodox ways, he wins by a long shot. But Rin knows that it all comes down to knowing the field. They're down 2-1, but they need to abuse their advantages. Their advantages lie more or less with Tokumitsu and Aru, and even Rin hates to admit it, but it's the truth. So he does try to attack more or less Bachira, attack more or less Nagi, use the height of Aru, and also use the strength of Tokumitsu. But at the same time, well, Nagi and Bachira are feeding off of Isagi's grittiness of the way he plays street ball, and that's flat out the truth. His way of playing street ball, it's an amazing thing, because when Tokumitsu charges at Bachira, he would kind of fold the lawn chair. As Tokumitsu would try to barrel forward, Nagi would try to bait him into more or less giving up the ball, but as he does this, Tokumitsu would continue to stumble forward, not realizing that, well, Bachira kind of moved out of the way, forcing him to fall forward, stumbling just enough where Bachira is able to poke the ball out and steal it from him. Rin is shocked to see this, not believing the style of football they're currently playing, and thinking that it's so weird. Why are they playing like that? It's nothing they've ever seen before. And when Isagi gets the ball back, it's proof that it's just straight up something they've never seen before. Because his dribbling style that he breaks out right in front of Rin, let's just say, Rin's never seen something like it. He begins to use his graffiti style dribbling. It looks like he's going one way, but he's actually going the other. But out of nowhere, it's a double fake, maybe a double back. He acts like he's going right, but then Rin tries to predict it by going the other way, but he actually does go right. Now this is so unorthodox. It's as if it's literally like cursive, like a random person just drawing or writing cursive everywhere, and you don't really know how the cursive is going to come out. You don't know if it's going to be a bunch of squiggly lines or full letters. And that's exactly what Isagi is doing, being unpredictable. He would score a goal, putting them up 3-1, and Rin doesn't even know what to do at this moment. He sees that Isagi is the core factor of all of this, but he can't get a grasp on how to beat him. How does he stop him? He's just so unorthodox to the point that it feels like his knowledge of soccer means absolutely nothing. And Rin would be right. His knowledge of soccer means jack all right now. It doesn't mean anything. Now he needs to realize he needs to go off of his intuition. He needs to go off of not what he knows, but what he can feel on the field. That's how he needs to beat Isagi. And that's how he's going to make sure to stop him. And frankly, it's going to be difficult for Isagi's team to stop them now. Now that they've seen most of the tricks they have defensively, Isagi may be gritty in terms of covering Rin, and raw strength and honestly aggression will not save anybody from Isagi. But at the same time, Rin would eventually find his goal, just like how he would always. He finds his goal. And after thinking about what Isagi's team is kind of built of and what he's doing, he's able to find a way to stop it. He finds a way to cut down on the unpredictability of Isagi. And frankly, it's a matter of him just not thinking as much. Don't sit there and overthink things, just do. And that's exactly what he does. He's able to kind of situate himself perfectly and stop Isagi. And he's able to stop him in his tracks. This would surprise Isagi, but a smirk would gain over his face and he would smile and he would be happy about this. Eventually, Rin would get obviously, like I said, would get his goal, putting them only down 1 point. Being that it's 3-2, there's a feeling of kind of uncertainty go over Isagi's team. how are they going to win this? I mean, this looks like Rin's kind of keeping up, but Nagi would tell Isagi that it seems like, well, it's his turn to show off. In which Isagi couldn't be happier to hear this, because at the end of the day, this excites him. Someone like Nagi, a prodigy, someone that is absolutely insanely good at the game, but didn't really love it. But now he does. Now he's hyped up. Now he's playing the type of football that he should have been playing from the very beginning. And that's exactly what he's going to be doing now. Nagi takes a book out of Isagi's more or less playbook and taking the dribbling but adding his own spin to it. His ability to dribble using that sort of graffiti style of dribbling that Isagi does, but at the same time his absolute control over the ball makes it even more unpredictable. Yes, Isagi's dribbling may look better and maybe quicker and more speedy, but Nagi's ability to stop the ball at will makes him so difficult to guard. And Aru has every trouble in the world guarding it. Ren sees this and thinks to himself that there's no way they have two of them. They already had to deal with the unpredictability of Isagi, but now they have to deal with Nagi? He thinks to himself that he can't guard both of them. He has to hope that he could somehow just catch him in his blind spot or stop him right before he could score a goal and try to play off of that. But Isagi, he's no dummy. He's not an idiot. He knows how to play the game the right way as well, and he knows how to just basically kind of strategize with his teammates. And his teammate Nagi, well, he's ready for a takeover, and Isagi is willing to give it to him. And when Rin tries to go and trap Nagi, his only way out is Isagi. And when that ball comes over to Isagi, and it's not a good pass, Isagi would jump in the air, and he would look just like the one and only prodigy Nagi. He would control the ball mid-air, trapping it, and then throwing it backwards more or less with his foot, and then shooting it with the back of his heel. And this would be a beauty shot, and it would put them up 4-2. Rin at this point doesn't even know what to do. He's not sure. He thinks that the match right now might be close to over. He's frustrated. He believes that Isagi isn't necessarily better than him. It's the team that he built is far better than the team that Rin built. Rin was so used to being so much better than everyone else, so he just picked up the two best people he could find. Isagi built his team around him. He had one Bachira, someone who has amazing dribbling, a beautiful pass, and on top of that has kind of the instincts of a street baller, someone who wants to have fun and kind of just go buck wild. Nagi, someone who has perfect ball control and has some insane athletics, and frankly, in a way, Nagi can play like a street baller too, just not to the degree of Isagi and Bachira. But at the same time, it's almost impossible to guard them, especially once Bachira learns to break free of Tokumitsu, because that was the issue. Tokumitsu was a difficult task to get by, and frankly, there was no correct way to solve that puzzle. But once he was able to break free from Tokumitsu, it was kind of just over. I mean, he wasn't able to break free every single time, but all it takes is one. He breaks free one time, and just like that, the advantage would skyrocket. The advantage for Isagi's team, and the advantage for Nagi, Bachira, and Isagi altogether would show in all of its glory. And Isagi's team would win 5-2. Absolute domination. Rin would be shocked, but at the same time, all these ideas would be flowing through his head. He would think to himself that he always thought this was such a brutish and dumb way of playing football. He's seen the street ballers, he's seen how they played on the streets and how they did this or that, but he never thought that these people would be that good. Maybe Isagi is just the best of them all. Rin would stand there just in shock and wouldn't even hear them say that they wanted Rin on their team. They would explain to Rin that there's many reasons why, but the main reason, and Isagi says, is that once he learns street ball in its entirety, there is no surprising him on the football field. He'll know everything. Everything will look like it's in slow motion. And Rin would say that he doesn't need their help to evolve and get better, but Isagi says that their chemical reaction won't be just an explosion. It's going to be far, far more than that. It's going to be an explosion as great as the sun. Isagi says this, and Rin would ignore him as he walks away, and Isagi would laugh, saying that he doesn't have to be so hard-headed about it. I mean, come on now. Let's have some fun. And Rin would just ignore him, and he wouldn't have a choice at the end of the day. Eventually, they would need to speak. But the next game they play, let's just put it simply. It doesn't matter who they play. It doesn't matter who they go against. It doesn't matter who their competition is. Their competition would be the two people from Rin's old team, being that of Aru Tokomitsu, but also a team of Chiguri and Ryo. Not much conversation would happen, but a small tidbit about Kunigami would be spoken about. Isagi would question it and ask where he is, but it's quickly learned that he kind of just dropped off. And they're all kind of shocked by this, or at least Isagi's team is, except for Rin, because, Rin doesn't even know who the hell that is, but Isagi is a little bit. But Isagi says that at the end of the day, if you get booted off, it just means you were unworthy and you were just unable to keep up with the ones at Blue Lock. Unfortunately, there's no sympathy in this game, and at the end of the day, they all are gunning for the #1 striker role. And Rin would agree with this, saying that's the first time he's heard something come out of Isagi's mouth that actually made sense. And Isagi says that he's smart, he might not be as smart as everyone else, as Rin, probably smarter than Bachira, but Bachira would then slap him on the back, saying that's not nice to call people dumb, but Isagi says that he's not calling him dumb, he's just calling him not smart. Bachira would slap himself in the face, and then kind of slap Isagi in the back of the head once again, and tell him to be quiet. Isagi would laugh about this, but Rin would just say that they already are proving his point. But the game would begin, and it would be an absolute domination. It wouldn't be close. And I hate to say it, that's just the case. Already, the team of Bachira, Nagi, and Isagi was so perfectly coordinated, or at least so just chemically inducive of an actual explosion, that it just worked so well. They were like the perfect trio, or at least one of the perfect trios, and frankly, it's just the fact of the matter. Absolute fireworks would come out of them. So when you add someone like Rin, and when he finally decides to, figure out this whole street ball thing, giving him kind of a brand new way of looking at the football fields, it's practically unstoppable. Isagi does try to get him to learn his way of dribbling, and they did work on that, or he did try to get him to work on that during their little training sessions, but Rin would say that his dribbling style is just stupid. Yeah, it may be hard to read, but that takes insane amounts of energy, and not many people have that type of stamina, and it's pretty obvious that's the case. They saw how tired Nagi was after the game. The only person that really wasn't tired at all was Isagi. Isagi does say that he runs like crazy to get insane endurance, but he would also tell Rin that he does the same. He has insane work ethic, so there's no reason why he won't be able to utilize the dribbling style. And this game would be over very quickly, and once Rin decides to experiment just a little bit, experimenting with that dribbling style that Isagi was speaking about, showing even more in his repertoire, it is insane. Rin seems like an unstoppable force, but at the same time, with the addition of Rin to the team of Isagi's team, everybody else gets better as well. Rin's not just more or less just jumping ahead. Isagi is getting so much better from learning the way that Rin looks at the game, how he utilizes basically spaces on the field, and how he utilizes blind spots to get open goals or open passes. Isagi can now use this with his unorthodox way of scoring goals, and frankly, it's gonna be a freak of nature on the field. After they beat their little team 5-0, and frankly Isagi's team would just dominate, they do pick up Chiguri. That decision is pretty easily made, especially because of how fast Chiguri really is. The next test, though, that, well, Isagi's team would have would be against the World 5. Yeah, the World 5. It's kind of an insane task. I mean, we're talking about the best players in the world, and they got to take them on as a team. This is kind of odd. And it would get off to a pretty interesting start, even though, well, Rin was talking a lot of smack, and, well, frankly, it feels like that's just a Rin thing to do, but they do come out and score a quick goal. Rin does score an early goal, and it feels like they might actually have some sort of advantage. I mean, this is kind of crazy to think about, but maybe they do. But soon after, reality would kind of give them a bit of a wake-up call, because that Rin goal, it wasn't a fluke necessarily, but defensively, there is no stopping that team. They try to stop him. Isagi actually can keep up just a little bit, especially with his way of defending, but no, they can't stop him. They score goal after goal, but even Isagi kind of gets another goal in there on his own. He gets one in there with the unorthodox dribbling of his graffiti dribbling, and all of them even try to muscle Isagi, but his grittiness pushes him all the way through, and they're even impressed with the kid, and they're pretty shocked overall. They would score maybe a couple more goals. It would probably end up being 5-3, but let's just say the game didn't really feel close, not even really remotely. Yes, it might have sounded, it was 5-3, so it was kind of close, but that's just not the case. Just because something is close in score, it didn't mean that the World 5 even fell in trouble. Frankly, the World 5 wasn't really trying as a team, and if they decided, let's try as a team, I mean, it probably would have just been flat out domination the entire way. With that said, though, they weren't really made to win this game. They weren't. Rin is torn up about it, but Isagi's actually happy. The experience is good enough for him, and he's excited to see how far along he'll come for whatever's next in the next selection. And soon, well, they will hear about that next selection. Many people would walk through those doors, and Isagi would hear from Jinpachi Ego that the next test will be the U20 match. They'll be taking on some of the best in Japan, including the one and only Itoshi Sai. Isagi would look at Rin, then look back at him, and then look at him, and then look back at the picture, then look back at Rin, and then look back at the picture, and he would look back at Rin. Hey, you guys look pretty similar. Like, really similar. I don't like his red hair, though. Looks kind of weird. Just me? Rin would kind of look at him and tell him to shut up, but Isagi would say that it seems like he has bad blood with his brother. He looks at Rin one last time and says, just because he has bad blood doesn't mean that they won't stomp his brother to the ground. He promises him that his brother, he'll know exactly what Blue Lock is all about, because he has no idea what's coming. Because at the end of the day, you can watch all the film in the world. You can watch everything you possibly can, predict, try to study up on whatever they can do. But once that chemical reaction occurs and that nuclear bomb gets set off, there is no stopping them. And Isagi makes this clear. For the first time ever, Rin smirks as if he's convinced by Isagi that they're going to smash his brother into the ground. and many others that are there tell them to not leave them out of it. And Jinpachi Ego would say that they have some more things to attend to before the U20 match, because they need to find out who exactly deserves to be on that team. So in the words of Ego, he says, "Let's now get to work." But that is where the story will end.